Welcome back to the Late Developers. I missed last week, but don't worry, we're doing a double chapter review today. We're doing chapters 1146 and 1147 of One Piece. Super excited to talk about it. Let's get into it, guys. So this week, we're actually continuing Oni Child Yamato's Golden Harvest Surrogate Pilgrimage. Still a mouthful, but I think I'm getting better at saying it. But yeah, this week's chapter, we're actually continuing where Ulti is pledging her allegiance to Yamato, and by proxy, that means Page One is joining Yamato too. It's actually pretty funny because they're basically god siblings, because Kaido is like their godfather based off of cover stories and SBS stuff that you gotta if you know, basically. I'm not gonna explain everything here. But yeah, like I said, I figured that Yamato was going to start building up her own crew, and this is just the start of it. So we're actually continuing off where 1145 ended, where Gunko jumped on top of the Straw Hat ship, and she's talking to them as if she's a god, which actually causes Usopp to bring up Eneru, which I know is going to have the One Piece theorists going crazy, because like 90% of One Piece theories involve Eneru coming back in some way. I don't know why. I understand he's a fan favorite, he has a great devil fruit, but they're like, yeah, Eneru is going to come back with like the ancient history and the final road poneglyph and all that type of stuff. So I'm interested to see what the theorists have to say about this. And then Gunko starts to lay out her master plan, where she's like, yeah, we're going to take the kids and bring them back to Mary Joa. And so the Straw Hats are like, Mary Joa, oh, so you're a celestial dragon, but we haven't seen one like you before. And Brook, of all people, actually brings up, like, oh no, I think they're higher. They might actually be a god's knight. And then that's pretty interesting, because I'm wondering if that's going to come back in some way, maybe next chapter. And then at that point, Gunko raises an arrow to Usopp, which then proceeds to have the Straw Hats attack Gunko. Nami uses a brand new attack, Thunder Shark Tempo, which of course Gunko redirects back at them. And then that's when it hits Brook, which we thought it was Nami, but then no, it actually turns out that it was Brook, because I think he attracts more electricity because of his afro and his bones or something like that. It's been brought up in the story before. And then Usopp, of all people, he lays into Gunko and fires a skull bomb grass at her, which actually destroys her body. And the Straw Hats are like, yo, what the heck, Usopp? You went too far. You killed her. And Usopp's like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. But then Gunko starts regenerating. So this is actually really interesting, though. The fact that Gunko started regenerating means that all the God's Knight, not just Shamrock, not just Garling, they all have Imu's power, because if Gunko, of all people, can do it, that means all of them can do it. And we actually get confirmation later on that, yeah, all the God's Knights are immortal in either the end of this chapter or next chapter, but you'll have to see. And then we get the Straw Hats gearing up to attack Gunko, but we actually cut away for a brief second to Dory and Bragi handling some of the nightmares. It's interesting because we see that capable fighters are able to handle them with no problem, but the nightmares do seem stronger than the average soldier, which is a really good thing, because it power scales in a different way. Things aren't linear in One Piece. It's not just oh, these characters can move faster and punch harder, so therefore they're stronger. It's no, they're bringing out a unique type of power system that deals with a large group of people, which makes them a threat. And it's really good that Oda does this. The way he set up his power system is very creative, because when you get into power levels, imagine if Killingham just showed up with a power of 5 billion, and then Sommers has a power level of 5.5 billion. That'd be so boring. It wouldn't be interesting. It's no, they have creative ways to introduce stronger people, and creative ways to show that they're a threat, as well as scale how strong they are. It's just good writing by Oda. I really appreciate that. And then we cut back to Gunko at this point, who's now kidnapping Colin, but then the Straw Hats try to step in and stop that, but then she uses her arrows to have them attack each other. Now, Jinbei and Brook do end up hitting each other. Brook gets his head punched off, which is not a big deal because he can pull it back in. But Jinbei does get stabbed. However, Jinbei's a tough guy, so I think this did virtually no real damage to him. It's not like he's gonna need to recover or anything like that if a fight happens. He's basically still fine. I don't think it went super deep in the first place anyway. At this point, Gunko absolutely bodies Usopp and Nami. She kicks Nami, and then she knees the shit out of Usopp, and then the Straw Hats all start falling off off the boat. And I think that's all we see of them in this chapter. We'll follow up with them in the next chapter. So at this point, then we cut away to Killingham. We're doing a lot of cutaways in these next couple of chapters. But yeah, we cut away to Killingham, where he's actually like body slamming Principal Kiba. And after he does that, he then speaks to something called a Dengo Mushi, which actually translates to translation snail, funny enough. So it's a translation to translation, basically. The Dengo Mushi works the same way as a Denden Mushi. It's just bigger, and it like broadcasts to like a large area, basically, is what I'm getting from the translations. So yeah, now at this point, Killingham and Somers are getting ready to address the entire nation of Elbaf. And at this point, it's like getting really weird for me when I was reading the chapter last week, because I was like, why is Somers like bodying Saul and Robin and Chopper just sitting there just like letting this happen? Robin of all people is letting this happen. It's really interesting too, because Somers' fruit does seem to be a direct counter to Robin's fruit, the Hana Hana no Mi, where it's like his thorns like can touch multiple people at once, but it hurts them, and then Robin's touches multiple surfaces at once, but you know, she doesn't necessarily hurt people with it. So like, she has to make contact with him, but the only way she can make contact with him is by touching his thorn. So it seems like there's like a direct counter thing going there, and I'm really interested to see how that works out in the future of the story right now. I have actually seen some people speculating that Robin and Somers will fight in this arc, and like, you know, Robin will defeat Somers. I really hope that's the case, because like, Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, they're cool, but like, I would love to see more of the Straw Hats get more action, especially Usopp. I've seen a lot of people saying that Usopp most likely is going to fight Killingham in this arc, because, you know, like, Killingham makes like nightmares. And Usopp's thing, especially in this arc of all arcs, is that he's got to face his fears. So, like, fighting the guy who literally creates nightmares and facing your fears makes you a brave warrior, sure, I'm all down for that. Any Usopp representation is good Usopp representation. And I'm not gonna lie, Usopp needs to get the numbers up. He not scoring points this season. I'm kind of disappointed. Like, if we're being real, Usopp is not beating the fraud allegations right now. He's been talking the entire series about, I want to go to Elbaf. I'm going to be raw just like the giant pirates. I'm going to do whatever I need to do to, like, put my captain up there, make him Pirate King once I get to Elbaf. Just wait till I get to Elbaf. We're in Elbaf. He's still acting the same. I'm not gonna lie, this is a disappointing first quarter. Maybe he can recover in the next 3 quarters. We still got 3 quarters left to go. I know he's coming right off the bench, but like, yo, he promised us he was gonna give us a hot season. Lukewarm at best right now. You did a little to Gunko, but I'm not impressed, Usopp. You got to get the murky numbers up, alright? But yeah, before we cut to the next chapter, Somers actually does mention a bit about King Harold. So it's not really clear if he's a good guy or a bad guy, but we'll have to see more going forward. I'm actually glad that I waited till the next chapter came out, because if I would have made the review when the chapter came out, this would have been a completely different review. I would have been ranting about, like, why is Robin of all people not helping Saul? Like, there should be more going on. Luckily, cutting into the next chapter, we do get an explanation, like, right away. Saul is like, hey, do not come out. These guys are immortal. We need to find an opening, so just wait for an opening. Don't come out and fight. Which, you know, gives a pass in my book. But yeah, that was like a brief flashback that happens in the beginning of the chapter. Cutting back to the main timeline of the chapter, Gunko actually reunites with Somers, and then we have all the Straw Hats rounded up. So Somers is like, hey, are we bringing them with us? And Killingham is like, no, we're not incurring the wrath of Straw Hat Luffy right now. Which I love to see, because, like, for the longest time, Luffy has always been the underdog. Always been underestimated. The first time we ever see him not get underestimated was by Katakuri, and that was in an isolated place. Now the entire world is like, this guy is an emperor. He beat Kaido. We're not taking chances. We're not sleeping on this dude, alright? We know he has Conqueror's Haki. We know he has a crazy devil fruit. We know he got motion, bro. That nigga got like 1 million people on his side. We not messing with him. Don't provoke him more than necessary right now. I love to see it. So then the Straw Hats start bickering about what they're gonna do here. They're like, oh, you know, like, Jinbei, you're the strongest guy here. do something. He's like, yo, chill. Let me cook right now. Let me figure out what we're gonna do. Interestingly enough, at the same time they're bickering, Brook is looking at Gunko, and he seems to recognize her from somewhere. That's interesting where that's gonna go. Remember, Brook's only been like, active for the last 2 years, kind of. I'm sure he was touring and stuff like that. But before that, he was like trapped on a boat for 50 years. So how does he know Gunko? And at that moment, Gunko actually approaches Brook, and then she, like, not only does she give him a panty shot, she actually steps on him. So Brook's having a great day. I don't know about the rest of everyone on Elbaf, but she's actually giving him, like, the best day of his life. He's been asking to see someone's panties for, like, the longest time, and I guess because she's a fan of the Soul King, she flashed him. I mean, he is a pop star, Pop stars get flashed. It's just what happens. And then she even threw stepping on him for free. So Brook's having a great day, in my opinion. He's having a great day. But yeah, speaking about Gunko, I've seen the theories that people are like, oh yeah, Gunko is Ginny, who is Kuma's wife and Bonnie's mother. I've also seen the theories that Gunko might be like a former revolutionary who became a God's Knight. Listen, I think something's up with Gunko, but I don't think it's those things. I think we need to know more, and I think she is different from the rest of the Celestial Dragons because she's not a saint like Killingham and Somers, who both got saint in their title. I do think she does act a little bit different, and Oda is showing off different things about her. But I think we need to see more before we can start putting pieces together. I don't think she's a clone of Ginny, and I don't think she's a former revolutionary. I could be wrong on those things, but like, I'm just not in the space right now to theory craft about her when we're still figuring things out. Only thing we know about her, she likes good music. She likes peak music because, they don't call Brook the Soul King for nothing, Gunko at this point is telling Brook, she's like, oh, you're going to be my personal slave right now, which doesn't sound so bad. But she's like, you're going to be my personal slave and make music for me. Which even Somers at this point, like, hey, Killingham was right. Do not antagonize these Straw Hats more than necessary because I'm also not in the mood to fight Straw Hat Luffy. Now remember, this is important. This part is very important. Reason why this is important because as far as we know, from the Gorosei to Imu to the God's Knights now, these guys are functionally immortal. So the fact that they're going out of their way to know who to pick their fights with is important because that means that they do have weaknesses and they are susceptible to damage and getting into trouble. They're not just like walking through life. Now, it wasn't like damage, but we have seen people with the same powers as the God's Knights, which were the Gorosei, and when they took damage, it was from Joy Boy's Conqueror's Haki. Now, that most likely means that Conqueror's Haki is the key to fighting these people. So if you have strong enough Conqueror's Haki, you can definitely do severe damage to them. Like I said, they're functionally immortal, but they're not actually immortal. So we'll have to see how this plays out in the future, because like I said, I do want to see Somers fight Robin. But Robin, as far as I know, doesn't have Conqueror's Haki. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, so at this point, Brook then humbly declines the invitation to be her slave. Tweaking, in my opinion, a cute girl like Gunko asked me to be her slave. I'm probably going to turn into Sanji at that moment. Shout out to Big Sanji at that moment. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I feel like, Zeus and Sanji, they got the right mindset. But no. He turns the invitation down because he says that I've already dedicated my life to Luffy, and I would rather die than live without dishonor by, betraying the person that I'm indebted to, which, is cool for a Brook moment. Brook is just a constant aura farmer. We don't talk about it. Like, you talk about, like, top aura farmers like Piccolo. Brook is up there. He up there with the aura farmers. He be walking around with the cane and be like, I already cut you. And you're like, wait, what? And he just sits there. He's, like, so solid. And you're like, and he he got that sauce. Like, Brook low-key be having that type of aura around him, right? But yeah, I just wanted to bring that up. So yeah, after Brook declines, then Gunko starts beating him up. But then Somers starts broadcasting to all of Elbaf. And they basically say, hey, we've got the kids, and we want you to work for us as our battle thralls. And here are our demands. Now, it's at this point where the giants start realizing, like, oh, these monsters are the manifestations of the kids' fears, right? And then they get to a really funny scene where the moms of, like, the children are, like, in nightmare form, not the actual mom, but like the nightmare versions of the kids that fear their mom start attacking, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, the moms! They're breaking our ship!" And the moms are destroying everything because obviously nothing can stop a mother's wrath, especially when she's angry. Have you ever made your mom angry? Like, you know you can't stop that. That's, you know, you gotta just like run and hide at that point. Now at this point they start listing off the children and let everyone know like, we do have your children, and they start listing off their names and whatnot. I'm honestly not gonna list their names, but they list off their names, and then everyone's like, oh my god, that's my kid, that's my grandkid, this is terrible. I'm honestly shocked though at like how much detail Oda went into like detailing the kids. Like, he gave them their own unique personalities. He gave them their own panel with their name and whatnot. So I'm wondering where this is going, because like, in my opinion, I thought Colin was gonna be like the insert for Kid Luffy when he met Shanks, and Luffy was gonna inspire him, but it doesn't seem that way. What does seem like it's happening is that like Luffy's gonna inspire like a whole new generation. Because if you remember, the kids from before were like, oh yeah, you know, fighting and war is so brutish, we don't want to do that. Colin's a weirdo for liking those things. But like, you know, they're in a situation now where they need to fight, and they're kind of helpless right now. So it might be a moment where like Luffy inspires all the kids to be like, hey, this is like, you know, it's cool to be smart, but you also got to fight too, and you know, intelligence is a big part of it. And then so Somers at this point is like, if you guys want to pledge your allegiance to us, you need to. I pledge allegiance to the flag. That's popped into my head at that moment. But yeah, at this point, Somers is like, I need you guys to pledge your allegiance to the world government, to the Celestial Dragons, yada yada yada. And he's like, to do this, burn down all your schools and libraries and all your history texts, because you are giants. You are not supposed to be scholars. You are supposed to be warmongers, and you will serve us as warmongers. Forget all your knowledge. Just fight, fight, fight for us. That is your job. And at this point, the Giants are enraged, you know, especially the Anne, I believe is her name, or something like that. She's one of the teachers. And of course, this infuriates Robin. And then, of course, you know, Colin being the son of Ripley and Gabon. Gabon steps into action, and Robin's enraged. And we get this super cool, like, double shot panel where you have Scopper Gabon on one side and Robin on the other side, and they're both like, I won't let this happen at any cost. And it's so good to see this. One, Robin, you know, she's one of my favorites. I put her up top, higher than the rest of the strats, because she's number one, of course. And then Scopper Gabon, he's like an insert for Sanji, who's also one of my favorite characters, who actually just happens to be at the bottom, unfortunately. I put them in order, if you're wondering, like, why, you know, there's no, like, I put Luffy in the middle, I swapped Zoro and Luffy, and I guess, but, you know, they're in order. Sanji just happens to be at the bottom. There's no, you know, Sanji's my favorite character. Let me see if I can get this off. There we go. Sanji is my favorite character. Of course, he's the best cook, the best chef, right? But yeah, you know, it just happens to be at the bottom. But yeah, Robin's also one of my favorite characters. I love her to death. So I'm glad to see her getting more involvement here. Scopper Gabon, I've been waiting to come into this. I love Rayleigh too. I like Rayleigh more than I like Zoro. Rayleigh got that like aura about him, get that sauce, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, you know, but Scopper Gabon too, he's been impressing me with his actions recently. So I'm interested to see where this goes. But yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Please like, comment, and follow, subscribe, whatever, man, because like, I would love to do this more often for you guys, and the only way I can do that is with your support. I plan to make it big one day, and I would be nothing without you guys. That would not happen without you guys. So if for some reason you made it all the way to the end of this video and you like the content that I make, drop a like, drop a follow, leave a comment, whatever. Thank you for watching. The Late Developers signing out.